You don't have to wear chains to be a slave anymore. Today, people carry their bondage in their wallets, not on their wrists. Debt has become the new master, quiet, polite, invisible, but it owns more lives than war or poverty ever did. The tragedy isn't that people owe money, it's that they owe freedom. You see, the worst prison you'll ever live in isn't made of bricks, it's made of bad financial habits. Most people believe they're moving forward because the wheels are turning, but what they don't realize is that they're spinning in financial mud. They make payments every month, yet the mountain never moves. They earn more, yet somehow feel poorer. Let's talk about the habits that keep you broke and the principles that can make you free. You know, most people believe that if they could just make their payments on time, one day somehow the debt would disappear. They treat debt like an unwanted guest that will eventually get tired and leave. But let me tell you something that changed my life. Debt doesn't vanish because you pay it, it vanishes because you outgrow the behavior that created it. If the thinking stays the same, the numbers come back. It's not a matter of mathematics, it's a matter of mindset. You can't solve a financial problem with the same habits that caused it. I remember years ago when I was working long hours, making decent money, and still living paycheck to paycheck. I couldn't understand why I was always short. I blamed taxes, the economy, even bad luck. Then one day, my mentor looked me right in the eye and said, "You don't have a money problem, you have a behavior problem." That hit me hard. He told me, if I gave you $10,000 today and you haven't learned how to manage 100, that 10,000 will vanish just as fast. And he was right. You can't manage big money if you're careless with small money. Debt is a teacher, and until you learn its lesson, it will keep showing up. The first step is not to throw money at it, but to understand it. What choices brought you here? What emotions drove those choices? Maybe it was impatience, wanting something now instead of earning it first. Maybe it was fear, spending to feel secure or significant. Maybe it was comparison, trying to keep up with people who were just as broke, only better dressed. You can't fix what you don't face, and most people never take the time to look dead in the eye and say, I created this and I can uncreate it. Once I understood my patterns, I started writing things down. Every dollar that went out, I recorded it. Not to punish myself, but to see myself. And you know what I found? Most of my spending wasn't logical, it was emotional. I wasn't buying things, I was buying moments of relief. That realization changed everything. When you start spending intentionally, you regain control. Build a simple plan. This much for living, this much for saving, this much for investing. Make money obey you, not the other way around. The truth is, paying debt without changing behavior is like cutting weeds without pulling the roots. They always grow back, sometimes taller. If you want freedom, change the way you think about money, the way you react to money, and the way you use money. It's not the payment plan that sets you free, it's the person you become while creating it. It's an interesting thing about human nature. When we get into trouble, our first instinct is often to look for a shortcut. We think if I can just borrow a little more, if I can shift things around, if I can get a new loan with better terms, I'll be fine. But here's the truth. You can't dig yourself out of a hole by digging faster. Every time you borrow to pay off debt, you're not solving the problem, you're postponing the pain. And what you postpone eventually multiplies. Borrowing for comfort is like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. It feels like you're doing something useful, but you're only making it worse. I've met people who were trapped in that cycle for years. They called it managing their finances, but what they were really doing was rearranging the same problem, hoping it would magically disappear. I remember a young man who came to me once and said, I finally paid off my credit card by taking out a personal loan. He was proud, excited, relieved. But 6 months later, he had the loan and the credit card balance again. Why? Because he never fixed the root of the issue. He kept trying to solve a behavior problem with a financial product. You can't borrow discipline, and you can't finance wisdom. Debt thrives in desperation. When you act out of fear or impatience, you make decisions that trap you further. The wealthy understand something very simple. Debt is a tool, not a lifeline. If you use it without strategy, it owns you. But if you use it with purpose, it can serve you. The problem is, most people don't borrow to build, they borrow to breathe. And that's the trap. There was a time in my own life when I had to learn this lesson the hard way. I was behind on payments, juggling accounts, and thought, maybe if I just refinance, I can catch up. My mentor stopped me and said, if you want to catch up, stop running in circles. That day, I tore up a few applications, sat down with a notebook, and wrote out my truth, how much I owed, what I spent, and what I needed to change. It wasn't pretty, but it was honest. And honesty was the first step toward freedom. You see, borrowing to pay debt is like trading one prison cell for another. The walls may look different, but you're still locked inside. The way out is through discipline, not deception. Cut expenses. Sell something. Work an extra shift if you must. Use new income only to crush principle, not to soothe discomfort. And above all, don't let your pride keep you in chains. Admitting you've made mistakes isn't weakness, it's wisdom. The moment you stop trying to escape through more borrowing and start facing the truth head on, that's the moment your financial healing begins. You know, one of the greatest traps of modern life is the illusion of progress. You see it everywhere. People who are busy all the time, working hard, paying bills, checking boxes, and yet they're not really moving forward. Nowhere is this illusion more dangerous than in the world of debt. Paying only the minimum each month feels responsible. It feels like you're doing your part, staying disciplined, staying on track. But let me tell you something, it's a trap. Paying the minimum doesn't move you toward freedom. It keeps you in comfortable bondage. It's the illusion of progress without the substance of change. When you pay just the minimum, you're not paying down the debt, you're feeding the interest monster. That monster grows quietly, month after month, while you're telling yourself you're doing fine. I remember meeting a young couple once who proudly told me, "We've never missed a payment in 5 years." But when I looked closer, they still owed more than they did in the beginning. They weren't paying off debt, they were renting it. That's what happens when you confuse activity with achievement. I learned early in my own financial journey that comfort can be the enemy of success. Paying the minimum keeps you comfortable. It's small, it's easy, it doesn't hurt too much. But freedom requires discomfort. It requires urgency. You have to feel the pressure to grow, to change, to pay off that debt faster. When I was broke, I realized that if I kept doing the easy thing, I'd stay broke forever. So, I did the hard thing. I made extra payments even when it hurt. I skipped a few comforts, sold a few luxuries, and redirected every extra dollar toward the debt with the highest interest rate. The progress was slow at first, but once I gained momentum, it was unstoppable. The trick is simple but powerful. You list all your debts, from the highest interest to the lowest. Attack the worst one first with everything you've got. Don't worry about the others, just make their minimums. Then when that first one is gone, take the money you were using for it and roll it into the next. It's like a snowball, small at first, but as it rolls, it grows, and soon it's a force you can't stop. That's the beauty of momentum. See, minimum payments are designed to keep you paying forever. It's a system built on your complacency. But when you turn urgency into a habit, you take the power back. You stop being a customer and start being a commander. Freedom isn't in doing the easy thing. It's in doing the right thing consistently, even when it's uncomfortable. Stop renting your debt. Own your future. Pay with purpose, pay with urgency, and before long, you'll discover that the progress you once imagined has finally become real. It's a strange thing. Most people think they're being smart when they say, "I'll start saving after I'm debt-free." It sounds logical, doesn't it? Clear the slate, then start building. But here's the flaw in that thinking. Life doesn't wait for your debt to disappear. Emergencies don't knock politely and say, "We'll come back when you're ready." They show up uninvited: car repairs, medical bills, broken appliances, and when they do, if you have no defense, you go right back into the very debt you were trying to escape. You can't win the game of wealth if you only play offense. You need defense too. I remember when I was younger, I was in that same cycle: earn, pay bills, pay debt, repeat. I told myself, I'll start saving when things calm down. But they never did. Every time I got close to making progress, something would happen, and I'd have to borrow again. I was trapped, not because I didn't work hard, but because I had no cushion, no shield, no plan for the unexpected. One day, my mentor said to me, "You can't build wealth with holes in your bucket." That's what debt without savings is, a bucket that leaks. No matter how much you pour in, it never fills. So I decided to do something simple but powerful. I started saving a small amount every week, even while I was paying off debt. At first, it was laughable. $10 here, $20 there. But it wasn't the amount that mattered, it was the discipline. I was building a habit, a sense of control, a little fortress around my financial life. And the first time an unexpected expense came, I didn't reach for the credit card. I reached for my savings. That moment changed my entire relationship with money. I realized savings isn't just about accumulation, it's about peace of mind. You see, if you don't have an emergency fund, every surprise becomes a crisis. And when you're in crisis mode, you make poor decisions. So before you attack your debt, build your foundation. Save at least $1,000. Keep it somewhere separate, untouched, sacred. Automate it if you can. Set a small transfer every week, even if it's just the cost of a coffee or a meal out. Over time, you'll feel a shift. You'll start thinking differently, acting differently, and handling money with more confidence. The secret is this: saving while paying debt isn't competing with your goal, it's protecting it. You're not slowing down your progress, you're securing it. Because debt without savings is like climbing a mountain with no rope, one slip, and you're right back at the bottom. But once you've built that small safety net, every payment you make is progress you can keep. Remember, wealth isn't just about how much you earn, it's about how well you defend what you've built. It's funny how human nature works. We crave reward more than results. The moment we make a little progress, the temptation whispers, "You deserve something nice," and before you know it, the very celebration of victory becomes the cause of another setback. I've seen it over and over again. Someone pays off a credit card, feels proud, and then goes right out and buys something to celebrate. A dinner, a gadget, a small trip, and just like that, the balance starts creeping back up. The truth is, many people don't lose to debt because of ignorance. They lose because they can't resist the urge to reward themselves too soon. Every time you celebrate with spending, you reset your progress. When I was young and just beginning to change my financial habits, I fell into that same trap. I remember the first time I finally cleared one of my small debts. I was thrilled. It felt like a mountain had been moved. And what did I do? I went out to dinner to celebrate. It wasn't a big meal, but it was a symbol of something bigger, a moment where emotion overpowered wisdom. The next morning, I realized that if I wasn't careful, I'd turn my victories into revolving doors. That was the day I learned that true celebration isn't indulgence, it's continuation. Discipline is the highest form of self-respect. When you resist the urge to spend impulsively after a win, you're telling yourself, I value my freedom more than my comfort. That mindset separates those who stay free from those who relapse. The wealthy understand that real reward isn't in spending, it's in seeing the numbers grow, the balance fall, the future unfold with stability. It's about the quiet satisfaction that comes from control. So, what do you do when you win a little? You channel that energy forward. Pay yourself by saving, not spending. When you pay off one debt, move directly to the next. Let the momentum carry you. This builds confidence, power, and consistency. It turns financial progress into a rhythm. Each victory fuels the next. Each payment strengthens your character. You stop being a reactor and start being an architect. I once told a friend, don't celebrate with money, celebrate with mastery. Visualize your future freedom, the moment when every bill is paid, every dollar works for you, and you can finally breathe without worry. That vision is worth far more than any fleeting pleasure you can buy today. The key is to shift your definition of reward. Let progress be the prize. Let discipline be the gift. Because when you learn to celebrate by saving, to honor progress with purpose, something powerful happens. You stop chasing temporary joy and start building permanent freedom. And that, my friends, is a reward worth waiting for. One of the greatest weaknesses in the average person's financial life is not ignorance, it's vagueness. They know they owe money, but they can't tell you how much. They know they're paying bills, but they don't know which ones cost them the most. They feel like they're making progress, but they can't prove it. And here's the truth, you can't improve what you don't measure. Clarity is power, vagueness is poverty. If you want to change your financial life, you must face it in full color, full detail, and full truth. I remember when I first started tracking my finances, it was humbling, painful even. I sat down one evening with a notebook and wrote down every debt I owed, every balance, every payment, every interest rate. At first, I didn't want to see it. It was easier to live in the fog of I think I'm okay. But the moment I put those numbers on paper, something shifted. The fear started to fade, replaced by determination, because now I knew exactly what I was fighting, and that's what most people miss. The fear of money is born in confusion, not reality. Once you get the facts, you gain control. Tracking your debt is not about obsession, it's about awareness. It's about turning a vague hope into a measurable plan. Every week, review your balances, your payments, and your spending. Watch the numbers move, even if only slightly. That progress, tiny as it seems, is the proof that your discipline is working. The wealthy do this instinctively. They treat their financial journey like a business. They measure, review, adjust, and act. They know that what gets tracked gets transformed. I often compare this process to losing weight. You can't lose pounds by wishing. You have to step on the scale, count your calories, and measure your progress. The same goes for debt. Keep a financial journal or a digital tracker. Set visual milestones. Mark when a balance drops below a certain point. Celebrate when a card is cleared. And review your totals monthly. That visual proof fuels motivation. It turns the abstract into the attainable. I remember a man I once mentored who dreaded looking at his accounts. He told me it's too depressing. I said, then make it less depressing by looking at it every day and changing the story. Within 6 months, his fear had turned into fascination. He began to enjoy tracking his progress. What had once been shame became pride. That's the transformation that happens when you replace denial with data. If you're not tracking your debt, you're driving blindfolded. You might move, but you'll never know if you're going in the right direction. Take off the blindfold. Face the numbers. Let clarity lead the way. Because when you measure progress, you invite improvement, and that, my friends, is where freedom begins. Too often people treat debt as if it's a numbers problem, when in truth, it's a thinking problem. Debt doesn't start with your wallet. It starts with your mind. You can pay off a bill today, but if your mindset remains the same, tomorrow's paycheck will vanish just as quickly. I've seen countless people dig themselves deeper because they never took the time to understand money itself. And here's the thing, you can't fix money until you fix your thinking about it. Financial education isn't optional, it's essential. Early in my own life, I struggled to make ends meet. I worked hard, long hours, yet I was barely keeping my head above water. It wasn't that I wasn't capable of earning more, it was that I didn't know the principles of money, investing, or value creation. I had to learn that money follows knowledge, not effort alone. The moment I began reading, studying, and seeking mentors, I realized that each dollar I earned could be multiplied through understanding. Start simple. Read one financial book each month. Focus not on entertainment or distractions, but on learning the language of money, budgeting, investing, understanding interest, and wealth psychology. These are the tools that the wealthy use every day. They study, they observe, and they internalize. You cannot hope to escape debt if you continue to treat money like a mystery. Education transforms confusion into clarity, fear into confidence, and habits into results. Attend seminars, online classes, or workshops focused on money management. Surround yourself with people who are actively learning and applying these principles. Your environment shapes your thinking. I remember when I first attended a small financial workshop, it felt intimidating at first. Everyone seemed more knowledgeable, more confident. But by the end of the weekend, I realized I was no different from them. What separated us was effort, the willingness to learn and apply. Knowledge alone isn't enough, though. You must apply what you learn. Each lesson in financial literacy should translate into an action. A budget, a savings plan, an investment, or a change in spending behavior. Debt disappears when smart decisions replace emotional impulses. When you understand the rules of money, the game changes entirely. Avoiding financial education keeps you trapped, not because you lack potential, but because you lack insight. Invest time in learning the principles of wealth and applying them to your life. Debt may seem overwhelming, but the right knowledge gives you the tools to conquer it. Start learning, start applying, and watch your financial future transform. Many people believe the only way to escape debt is to tighten their belts, to cut every expense until life feels like a constant sacrifice. And while discipline is important, relying solely on cutting costs is like trying to empty a lake with a teaspoon. True financial freedom requires increasing your income, not just reducing your outflow. You see, wealth isn't built by saving pennies alone. It's built by creating value that others are willing to pay for. Every increase in your earning power accelerates your journey out of debt and toward real freedom. Early in my career, I worked long hours, scrimping and saving, yet my financial situation barely improved. Then I realized the problem wasn't in my spending, it was in my earning. I was trading hours for dollars, and my value in the marketplace was limited by what I already knew and could do. I had to expand my skills, increase my value, and open doors to higher paying opportunities. That's when I began investing in myself, learning sales techniques, improving my communication, understanding finance, and developing problem-solving skills that others needed. Once I started applying these skills, doors began to open. Small freelancing opportunities, consulting projects, and side ventures began generating extra income. And here's the critical principle. Every extra dollar I earned went straight toward eliminating debt. I didn't allow it to slip into comfort or lifestyle upgrades. Each increase in income became a weapon against the debt that had been holding me captive. By focusing on value creation rather than mere frugality, I accelerated my journey to financial freedom. You too can apply this principle. Identify a skill that commands higher value in the marketplace, one that aligns with your strengths and interests. Dedicate time weekly to mastering it, applying it, and finding ways to monetize it. Every project, every side hustle, every new opportunity is a step toward erasing debt faster than cutting expenses ever could. Remember, income growth multiplies your impact. The more value you can create for others, the more resources flow toward your financial goals. This isn't about greed, it's about empowerment. By increasing what you bring to the table, you gain leverage over your debt, your future, and ultimately, your freedom. Stop thinking only in terms of sacrifice. Begin thinking in terms of value creation. Learn, earn, apply, and direct every new resource toward breaking free. This is how financial freedom is truly built. Too many people live paycheck to paycheck, believing that as long as the bills are paid, they are managing their money. But the truth is, if you spend every dollar you earn, debt becomes inevitable, and financial freedom remains a distant dream. The first step to breaking this cycle is understanding a simple principle. You must live on less than you earn. Wealth doesn't appear by chance. It's cultivated through discipline, planning, and intentional allocation of resources. If you give every dollar away to expenses, pleasures, or temporary comforts, there is nothing left to build the future you desire. Early in my career, I was guilty of this mistake. I earned a modest income, and when the money arrived, it disappeared almost immediately into rent, groceries, and small indulgences. I thought I was surviving, but in reality, I was building a pattern that would keep me bound to financial stress. The breakthrough came when I committed to allocating my income before spending it. I adopted a simple framework: 70% for living expenses, 10% for savings, 10% for investments, and 10% for giving. This allocation wasn't arbitrary. It created structure, prioritized the future, and allowed me to plant seeds that would grow over time. The practical application is simple but powerful. Before your paycheck ever hits your account, decide exactly where each dollar will go. Automate transfers for savings and investments so your future self is served first. Then, allocate what remains for living expenses, consciously keeping it within the 70% limit. This forces discipline while still allowing you to enjoy life. Even giving 10% instills a mindset of abundance rather than scarcity. Tracking is equally important. Many people believe they are living under control, yet at the end of each month, the numbers tell a different story. A financial journal or budgeting app reveals where the money actually goes, helping identify leaks and patterns that keep you tied to debt. Awareness and consistency turn a simple plan into a powerful habit. When you live on less than you earn, something remarkable happens. You gain control, reduce stress, and create space to invest in growth, pay off debt, and pursue opportunities that build long-term wealth. Every dollar not spent on fleeting pleasures is a soldier sent to work for your future. Discipline in living below your means is not deprivation, it is liberation. Start today by setting a spending plan, automating your future, and tracking every expense. Freedom begins when you master your money instead of being mastered by it. Many people believe that the path out of debt is a straight line. Pay off what you owe, tighten your belt, and eventually you'll be free. But I want to tell you a truth that most overlook. Focusing only on debt keeps you locked in a cycle. You see, what you focus on expands. If every thought, every action revolves around paying off a balance, you become obsessed with scarcity. Debt dominates your mind, your decisions, and your energy. You might reduce numbers on a statement, but your mindset remains trapped in limitation. Early in my life, I experienced this firsthand. I remember staring at my mounting bills, thinking the only solution was to throw every dollar at them. I worked harder, cut every expense, and celebrated small reductions, but I still felt chained. Then it dawned on me, debt alone is a negative target. If I continued to think only about what I owed, I would always be chasing something instead of building something. The breakthrough came when I began directing my mind toward opportunity rather than limitation. I started learning about investments, business principles, and ways to make money work for me, not just against me. The strategy is simple in principle, but profound in effect. Allocate time each week to education, exploring how assets grow, how businesses scale, and how income multiplies. Visualize your debt-free self, not just with bills paid, but actively building wealth, investing, creating streams of income, and developing skills that compound value over time. When your focus shifts from scarcity to abundance, your actions follow naturally. You don't just pay bills, you plant seeds for future prosperity. Practical steps make this vision tangible. Dedicate a portion of your week to studying, investing, entrepreneurship, or high-value skills. Map out a plan where income, growth, and debt reduction move together. Part of your resources addresses obligations, while another portion builds assets that generate more income. Even small beginnings matter. A modest investment or side project compounds over time and begins to replace the energy spent on fear with the excitement of creation. Focusing on wealth while managing debt transforms the journey. Suddenly, every payment, every dollar saved, and every extra effort is part of a larger strategy, not just survival. Debt becomes a temporary hurdle rather than the defining feature of life. The mind that creates wealth naturally finds ways to eliminate debt because it sees a bigger picture, a future built on freedom, opportunity, and control. Do not let debt alone define you. Shift your focus. Build, invest, learn, and grow. When you focus on wealth creation, debt shrinks, freedom expands, and your life moves from struggle to strategy. Too many people fall into a simple trap. They work hard to earn money and then spend it as quickly as it arrives, consuming more than they create. I've seen it countless times, and I've lived it myself in the early days. There was a period when I would spend evenings watching television, evenings when I could have been building a skill, learning about business, or creating a side venture. I thought I was resting, but in reality, I was training myself to be a consumer first, a creator second, and the truth is, wealth belongs to the creators, not the consumers. When you consume more than you produce, you are funding someone else's dreams, someone else's opportunities, while your own potential lies dormant. Every gadget purchased, every moment of entertainment that isn't building your skills is a tiny drain on your future. I remember a time when I was earning a modest income, yet constantly tempted to spend on things that provided temporary comfort. My mentor asked a simple question that changed everything. Are you building your life or just enjoying someone else's? That question haunted me until I began to act differently. The strategy is simple but requires discipline. Spend more time producing than consuming. Build something tangible, whether it's a skill that increases your income, a small business, a digital product, or even a service that solves a problem for someone else. Every hour spent creating compounds into future wealth. At the same time, reduce consumption, limit entertainment, unnecessary shopping, and distractions that don't contribute to growth. I started by cutting my evening television hours in half and dedicating that time to reading books on business, practicing communication skills, and writing out my financial goals. Practical steps make the shift real. Begin tracking your time for a week. How much is devoted to creation, learning, building, producing versus consumption, watching, scrolling, buying? Once you have clarity, consciously adjust. Double your creation time and halve your consumption time. Start a small project, even if it feels insignificant at first. It could be as simple as freelancing a skill you have, building a small online store, or creating content that shares value. Every bit of effort invested in production strengthens your capacity to generate wealth. The results aren't immediate, but over months and years, the difference is profound. The mind that creates generates options, opportunities, and income streams. The consumer mind grows dependent, distracted, and limited. I learned that wealth isn't a number in a bank account. It's the product of consistent creation, discipline, and intentional action. By choosing to create more than you consume, you don't just pay off debt, you build a foundation for freedom, security, and abundance. Decide today to be a creator first. Let your efforts produce, invest, and build, and watch as wealth follows naturally. Too many people believe that avoiding risk is the path to security, but in reality, the greatest risk lies in taking none at all. Early in my life, I was cautious, hesitant to invest or step beyond what felt comfortable. I watched opportunities pass by, thinking safety meant stability. Yet, what I discovered was that playing it safe keeps you average, and average is rarely rewarded in the world of wealth. Those who grow financially, who break free from debt and build prosperity, are willing to take calculated, educated risks. Risk does not mean recklessness. It means understanding the terrain, knowing your numbers, and stepping forward with wisdom and preparation. I remember my first small investment in a business venture. It wasn't a grand sum, just enough to test my ability to participate without jeopardizing my basic security. Yet, that first small step taught me more than years of cautious saving ever could. It showed me that calculated risk is not to be feared, it is to be respected. It is a tool, not a gamble. The strategy is to learn how to evaluate and manage risk, not avoid it entirely. Every investment, every new skill learned, every opportunity seized carries some degree of uncertainty. The key is to minimize what is unnecessary and maximize what is informed. Start small, with low-risk opportunities that allow you to gain experience without the threat of catastrophic loss. Track your outcomes, learn from mistakes, and gradually expand your risk tolerance. Each calculated move builds confidence, competence, and the capacity to handle larger opportunities. Practical steps bring this philosophy into action. Begin with small, low-risk investments, whether in the stock market, a side venture, or even a learning course that increases your skills and earning potential. Commit to learning one new investing or business concept each week. Knowledge is your best hedge against failure, and consistent learning reduces the fear that paralyzes most people. reinvest even small profits to reinforce the habit of putting money to work, creating a snowball of knowledge and capital. Over time, these small, deliberate steps compound. The risk becomes manageable, your judgment sharpens, and your confidence grows. The moment you stop fearing every choice and start evaluating them, you move from being a passive observer of wealth to an active creator. Avoiding risk might feel comfortable today, but it ensures stagnation tomorrow. Taking educated steps forward, even imperfect ones, builds experience, momentum, and ultimately, freedom. The choice is yours. Remain frozen by fear, or embrace calculated risk and let your efforts grow into lasting wealth. Too many people approach money with fear, scarcity, or self-doubt, and it shows in their results. I've seen it countless times, both in my own life and in the lives of those around me. Early on, I believed that wealth was something reserved for a lucky few, and that no matter how hard I worked, I'd never get ahead. That mindset kept me trapped in small jobs, endless worry, and the illusion that effort alone would someday free me. What I eventually realized is that your financial life is a mirror of your mind. You cannot cultivate a wealthy life with a poor mindset, no matter how many dollars you earn. A wealthy mindset begins by understanding that money is neutral. It is a tool, not a master. How you think about money, how you treat it, and how you direct it shapes the results you see in your life. I began by reprogramming my thoughts, seeing money not as a source of stress or greed, but as a means of service, freedom, and discipline. Each dollar became a soldier sent to work for a purpose, whether that purpose was building security, creating opportunity, or giving to others. Shifting my mindset this way transformed every financial decision I made. The strategy is simple but profound. Rewire your beliefs about wealth so that they empower rather than limit you. Negative beliefs like, "I'll never get ahead," or "money is the root of all evil," keep you locked in struggle. By replacing these with empowering affirmations, "I am capable of building wealth. Money is a tool to create freedom. I can use wealth to serve and grow." You gradually train your mind to focus on possibility rather than limitation. I remember writing these affirmations down each morning, reading them aloud even when it felt silly. Over time, they shifted my subconscious thinking and nudged my daily habits toward growth. Practical steps bring this to life. Start by identifying your own negative beliefs about money and write them down. Next, create positive, actionable affirmations that counter each limiting thought. Repeat them daily, visualize yourself making wise financial choices, and take one small action each day that reflects this new mindset. Track your progress, not just in dollars, but in confidence, clarity, and decisions that align with abundance rather than scarcity. Changing your thinking doesn't happen overnight, but every day you reinforce wealth-oriented habits, your mindset compounds just like money in an investment. Your beliefs shape your behavior shapes your finances, and your finances shape your life. By consciously cultivating a wealthy mindset, you lay the foundation for not just paying off debt, but building lasting financial freedom and a life of purpose. Remember, wealth is first created in the mind before it appears in the bank. As we reach the close of this conversation, I want you to pause for a moment and reflect on everything we've covered. Debt isn't just numbers on a statement, it's the reflection of our choices, habits, and mindset. You've learned tonight that the road to financial freedom doesn't come from shortcuts, borrowing to patch holes, or paying the minimums and hoping for miracles. True freedom comes from discipline, clarity, and a relentless commitment to thinking differently about money. It begins with paying yourself first, living intentionally below your means, and directing every dollar with purpose. It continues with increasing your value, learning continuously, and creating multiple streams of income that work for you even when you sleep. But the most important lesson is that wealth is first built in the mind before it manifests in the bank account. Every thought, every belief, and every attitude toward money is a seed. If you plant seeds of scarcity, fear, or impulsive gratification, you'll harvest struggle. But if you plant seeds of discipline, education, and vision, you'll cultivate freedom, opportunity, and long-term prosperity. Think of your future self as a partner in every financial decision you make today. Honor that future by making choices that serve it. Invest, save, educate, and create value. Your dollars are soldiers marching toward either freedom or frustration. Decide whose army you want them to join. I want you to see debt not as a prison, but as a teacher. Every payment, every sacrifice, and every habit you form while eliminating debt is a lesson in self-mastery. When you pair that mastery with a mindset focused on wealth creation, you begin to transcend the cycle that keeps most people trapped. You learn to leverage your time, your skills, and even your money itself to multiply results. You move from survival to strategy, from reaction to intention, and from fear to freedom. And remember, delayed gratification is not denial, it is planting seeds that will grow into a forest of opportunity. Every dollar saved, every unnecessary expense avoided, and every skill acquired compounds over time into a financial future you once thought impossible. So here's your challenge today. Don't leave this room thinking, "I'll start tomorrow." Begin now. Take one action that aligns your present with your future. Open a savings account. Track every dollar. Write down one financial goal, or dedicate an hour this week to learning a high-value skill. Then take the next action tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that. Momentum builds, and before long, the small steps you take consistently will lead to giant leaps. Remember, wealth is not a matter of luck. It is the result of clarity, discipline, action, and a mindset rooted in value. The choices you make today will echo through the years, shaping the life you will one day call freedom. Step into the 3%. Those who act deliberately, who honor their future selves, and who create not just income, but legacy. Your financial destiny is waiting, and it begins the moment you decide to take responsibility for it. Start now, stay committed, and let your future self thank you for the decisions you make today.